an individual's relationship with thought is the root of suffering. It's the root of unsatisfactoriness. Suffering here not meaning physical pain or unfavorable circumstances or conditions, but suffering meaning a feeling of being not in the right place, the feeling of being not comfortable in a body, not comfortable in your own skin, the feeling of having to control, which comes with the feeling of being out of control, having to carry that burden, or believing you have to carry that burden, feeling like you have to get life right, and that you can get it wrong, feeling like you have to decide whether you like the way things are going or don't, and then what you're going to do about it. And the feeling of being separate from everything so that you can do all that evaluation. All of that, which is rooted or nested in the feeling of separation, is so uncomfortable. It's heavy. Burns up a lot of energy. The feeling of separation in a very fundamental way, or in a very basic way, is the feeling of being in relationship with everything. And that's a bit of a loaded word, relationship, because a lot of our conditioning says we want relationship with other humans. We want better relationship. We want to be loved and seen and heard and validated and connected. But that's not, well, actually, I was going to say that's not really what I'm talking about, but it kind of is as well, in that the way we imagine relationship with other humans also distorts that. The feeling of having to seek more love, validation, being seen, etc., underscores a belief that we overlook constantly, that we are already out of connection. So there's that paradox of thought, paradox of belief. Anything you believe has a shadow. Any belief has the preconceived basis of the belief. If I believe that I need to find enlightenment, then that comes with a belief that enlightenment is not already here. If I believe I need to seek, that I need more validation, I need validation or love. If I feel, you don't really feel this, you believe it, right? But we say feel sometimes. But if I really believe I need love, I need to get more love, find more love, be loved. Do you see how it underscores the sense that you're not, or that love is just not here already, or that you don't have enough, and that you don't have, perhaps, this is more of a second degree belief, you don't have the worthiness to be loved? All those beliefs are nested in that sense of separation, which isn't a direct sense. It's a kind of non-conceptual thought. And as I mentioned, it feels like relationship in the most basic way, or it appears as relationship in the most basic way. In the most basic way relationship can appear. It's not the most primary experience, though. That's exactly what happens when the sense of separation is seen through. It's an aha moment that's usually not that big of a deal. It sometimes is if it comes early. Sometimes it can come even like before, maybe just before awakening or with awakening or right around that time. Usually doesn't stabilize there, but they can be very surprising. But later on, it tends to be just like it's like a backward step. You just take a backward step and see, oh, of course. Yeah. And then then it's never confusing again. The truth that a thought is the only thing that can produce the experience of separation. And it doesn't actually produce an experience of separation. It offers an illusion that you have to have a relationship with to believe. So this is kind of what this talk is about, is the relational nature of thought. As I started out the talk by saying, all thoughts, or I guess I said thought is the root of suffering, but all thought has the potential to lead you into suffering, but no thought is a problem in and of itself. Thought doesn't have agency. We impute a lot onto thought that comes out of relationality with thought and comes out of even our sort of relational matrix and memory bank about how we interact with ourselves and others and how our parents interacted with us. And this gets applied to thought, as I was mentioning in the guided meditation this morning. But we impute a lot onto thought without even noticing we do it. It's a dynamic that happens so quickly that we kind of just keep overlooking it. It's like we're chasing our tail a little bit, yeah? So we impute agency onto thought. Like a thought can do something. Like a thought can make you or break you. Like a thought is some kind of distinct entity in the inner world or in the world. Like it's trying to do you in, right? We kind of impute agency onto thoughts. We also impute this illusion of subject-object onto thoughts. Like a thought knows any object. So, for instance, sometimes we'll have a thought that says, like, I don't trust my body sense. This one comes up when I'm doing somatic work with people, right? A thought up here says, I don't trust the body sense. What we're imputing onto that thought is that it knows what the body sense is, that it has any sense of the object to which it seems to be referring, but it doesn't. Any more than the sentence you're reading on the page of a book can suddenly become aware of the page on which it's written. Or another way of saying it is the sentence that's saying, Joe drove a car. If that sentence is referring to some actual event in the world, that sentence is never going to become aware of that event. It's an afterthought. The sentence was a symbolic representation of something else. So that's how thoughts are. They're symbolic representations of something else, but they're not aware of it at all. And yet we believe thoughts about feelings, sensations, somatic experiences. And the reason we believe them is partially we impute that ability for them to know an object of experience, but also because we don't slow down enough to see that we're actually seeing that belief. So when you see me working with somebody doing Q&A, or when I was watching Alma do a Q&A an hour ago or whatever, the patterns of interaction are very similar in most of what we do. We're just slowing people down. We start often by just getting them to become aware of their thoughts. And then there's a lot of latitude in what we can do once you're aware of your thoughts. There's a lot of latitude and possibility in what you can do once you become aware of your thoughts as such. Until that happens, until you're aware of your thoughts as such, not much is going to happen. It seems like a lot's happening. In thought, it seems like a lot's happening. A lot of complexity, a lot of imagining, a lot of past and future. But all of that is a complete illusion. Once you're looking through the lens of thought identification, if you're looking through the lens of identity in reference to thought, you're just staying in La La Land. And La La Land can appear as anything it wants to, including spiritual La La Land. Remembering thoughts, seeming to remember awakenings and insights you've had, and all, but they're not. They're not doing that at all. They're just echoes, 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 echoes. So as long as you're looking through that lens of identifying with thought, really through one thought, which is I am, ultimately. But yeah, I don't need to get into that right now. But so the first step always is becoming aware of thoughts as such. It's very simple, and we start there most of the, well, I don't know about most of the time, but a lot of the times in these Q&As and so forth, that's where we start. Because it's usually obvious when I'm interacting with somebody who is not aware of their thoughts as such. They're a little bit transfixed in their story of like, no, this is what happens to me. It's like, no, it's not. I like Paul Hederman says, he's like, I'd make a great psychologist. People would just say blah, 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 and I'd say, that's not happening. And they go, blah, 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 and he goes, that's not happening. And they'd say it again, blah, blah, blah. He goes, that's definitely not happening. And that gives you, that recognition right there gives you so much space. When you realize, oh God, I don't have to like solve this problem from the past that I've been chewing on for 25 years. Why? Because it doesn't exist right here. A thought exists right here. A sensation exists right here. An emotion exists right here. You could even say a coping mechanism exists right here, but that story doesn't, right? It's a dissociative tendency. So yeah, that first step of becoming aware of thoughts as such is so important. Everyone here's done it, of course. Everyone here's crossed that threshold at least the first time. And when you cross it in a big way, when you see through the primary thought, the I thought, in one way or another, that's an awakening. It's a big shift. I had one at dinner last night, over dinner. But even after awakening, I mean, it still comes, right? The tendency to believe one more thought, or that thought, or just getting a little dissociated. The good thing is, after an awakening, is you're completely aware of the mechanism of it, even if you momentarily get caught up in it or whatever. It's very, very easy to lead people back after that shift. Before that shift, it can be really tricky because the mind reifies so quickly into the storyline, into the narrative, into time, the illusion of time and separation and all of it. But yeah, even in deeper stages of realization and so forth, in one form or another, the act of disidentifying from one thought again and again and again is the name of the game. Again, and I said in one form or another because it comes in different forms. One form that comes in is looking into really subtle perceptual filters, which are very subtle thoughts. Subtle in that they're not conceptual, right? It's much easier to see through the thought that says, my dad was a jerk. And then to be like, oh, okay, wait, my dad's not here. He's dead. I don't even know what I'm referring when I say a jerk. I'm summarizing a bunch of moments. How many moments did I have with my father? Millions and billions, however you break it up. So you can see through pretty quick, like, okay, that's a thought. No, it's not happening, right? Look around. There's none of that's here. That's not a subtle thought, right? That's more of a gross thought. And it's easier to see through those. It's more difficult to see through the thought that says, well, what you're seeing when you look right in front of your face right now has no distance at all. Distance doesn't exist. And the sense of there being objects out there in front of you, including me or the screen or the walls or whatever the heck you're looking at, that sense of those are objects apart from something that feels like you, that doesn't exist at all either. In the same way the thought about my father doesn't exist. They're both thoughts. One's just much more subtle. So in deeper realization, that's one of the ways in which we disidentify from thoughts, as we disidentify from more subtle thoughts. Another way is we disidentify from let's say beliefs, thoughts, beliefs that are um, protected by coping mechanisms, or I could say they're sort of wrapped in a wound. They're related to trauma. They're buried. Those are not so much perceptual filters. They're not so much subtle beliefs. They're just very hidden beliefs. Everything you're doing to not actually see that you believe that. You're avoiding it like the plague. This comes up when we do work with reactivity. The fetter 4 and 5, lower fetters. When I work with somebody with doing those, I always say the same thing at the beginning. Something like, this will be way more triggering than you think it will be. You won't want to keep doing it. You may not even know you don't want to keep doing it. You'll just find yourself not doing it. You'll get distracted. It's very difficult work in some sense, but it's also extremely simple. It's not complicated at all. It's not complicated, but there's something about those triggers that are so ingrained in your personality structure, in your habits, in how you move through the world, in your relational nature, and how you talk to people, and how you view yourself. Just all of it is in some sense trying to like not see that one belief clearly enough to dispel it. That's what it feels like when you do that reactivity work. It's a very powerful force. This is after awakening, by the way. The majority of people I start doing 4 and 5 with don't finish it. They probably do at some point, but not with me. Because it's that kind of thing. Especially if there's a lot of trauma, then it can really take a while to dissolve things and calm things enough down to really see these triggers. However, when they break those fetters, or as they're getting really close, what happens is often is they'll say, first of all, they say, I didn't know I could feel this calm. I had no idea how much reactivity I had. And then the other thing they notice is everything I was doing was trying to avoid seeing what this process was forcing me to see. Like we were literally looking right at the place you don't want to look and realizing, oh my God, like beliefs I have, habits I have, the way my memories are formed, all of it is around not seeing this. So the reason I'm saying all of that is just to point out the fact that some beliefs, some thoughts, some beliefs are difficult to get at, not because they're so subtle, but because they're so hidden by your coping mechanisms. So even, as realization clarifies and deepens and the deeper insights are dawning, it still becomes about beliefs, in my experience. It's not 100%. We do somatic work, feeling more and more and more, but that's automatic. You can't help but feel. The feeling is here. The sensations are here. More what we do is help you understand it's okay to feel. Help redirect your attention into the sensations instead of habitually being in thoughts. These are very simple adjustments. But why are you not feeling in the first place? Why is your attention constantly going up into thought, right? Well, there are beliefs that are causing it, ultimately. Simple beliefs, but pervasive beliefs, like I can't handle this. It's too much. Could be beliefs like there's nothing to see there. Could be beliefs like spirituality is not about shadow work, or yeah, a lot of different beliefs get us up in our head in reference to sensation and emotion and so forth. So what I wanted to ultimately talk about in this talk is something mechanistic, and this, perhaps except for the really subtle perceptual filters, this really applies to all kinds of thoughts and beliefs. And And it's simple if you see it clearly. Yeah, I think it's very simple. And the simple statement is no thought is a problem in and of itself. As I said, you have to impute things onto thoughts like a behavior, like your thought is you know, a parent, or it's trying to do something to you, or it's scary, or it's like we impute emotions onto thoughts, we impute agency onto thoughts, we impute intention onto thoughts without realizing it. But they don't really have any of that. So a thought is something like, as I use the analogy frequently, the wave in the ocean or an image on a screen. The screen that has the potential for any image, that's kind of consciousness, except this screen is infinite, has no edge, but it's kind of colorless in this analogy. The images are the color, the images are the shapes and forms on the screen. But as soon as you get caught up in the images, especially if you get caught up in one image, which is the image that you identify with, then it feels like that image is separate from the other images. And you forget that there's a screen at all. If you are aware of the screen, you perceive that the image is somehow separate from it, right? All of that is what I mean by we impute. We impute distinction onto the screen because of the light dance, the dance of light, the colors and the shapes. We impute separation. We impute story, narrative, time, agency. And yet the whole time, we're already staring at the screen. Without the screen, there are no images. Without the images, there can be a screen. The screen's always there, right? In this case, like the screen's there, whether the images are on it or not, whether they're scary or not, whether they're clear or not, whether you're tracking them or not, the screen is just there, doesn't change. So the screen has potential for images. It has the potential to take a sort of form, or at least project a form. But the screen itself, in this sense, is formless. There's another part of this analogy that needs to be adjusted a bit too, is when you're looking at the screen, and after the sixth fetter falls, this will look obvious to you, but if not, it won't seem like it. When you're looking at the screen in this analogy with consciousness, you're also not apart from the screen. The screen is you. The screen is your experience of anything. The screen is your ability to experience when we talk about consciousness. So it can experience itself. And it can experience itself actually without becoming self-conscious in the way that feels like an I. Consciousness can be experienced without even that self-referential thought, the I am thought. Like knowingness. Rigpa. Yeah, so the screen of consciousness contains every form, every image, every possible image, the potential for any image, but it depends on no image. It holds on to no image. It is altered by no image. Similarly, consciousness holds thought, allows thought to be seen, perceived, so to speak, but it never gets altered by any thought. It never stops being what it is. It never stops being this infinite capacity for knowingness, for beingness, requiring no label whatsoever, including the most basic label, I am. It can have that label, it's fine. So, with that said, one thought, one image on that screen is essentially nothing. It's damn close to nothing in comparison to what it's appearing on. That's a thought. When you're dialing into unbound consciousness meditation like we were doing this morning, then you know exactly what I mean by that. A thought is bliss. A thought is infinity. A thought is all of consciousness. A thought is not separate. A thought is not a problem. A thought does not point outside of itself. A thought does not experience time. A thought doesn't know anything about time or space. A thought doesn't know anything. A thought doesn't cause anything. It's just another lens to infinite consciousness. So then where does the thought become a problem? Well, that's the weird magic trick that happens within consciousness, is something starts reacting to the thought. This is where it gets hard to talk about mechanistically, because there's really nothing separate. But with that reaction, it starts to feel like something separate. Feels like a pulling back. Just a subtle pulling back. Recoil. Reaction. And the pulling back from the thought and the belief that the thought actually represents anything at all, to me, in my experience, are like dependently co-arising, to use a Buddhist term. They arise together. One doesn't cause the other. And I think it's helpful to see that. Because it's like, if you think, oh, there's a sense of I suddenly, and then that I starts reacting to thoughts, there's too much agency in that. Too much, it's too easy for that to turn into a kind of shame or self-doubt or something. On the other hand, if it's like, those thoughts are the problem and the thoughts are causing this and that, then you really overlook the sense of I, you overlook the subject, and then you start to feel, that's where mind identification really starts happening. You forget presence. You forget the sense of I that's kind of arising with that reaction to thought. You forget this, and you just get lost in thought. Past, present, future, problems, solutions, doctrine, concepts, right? So I think it's helpful to not conceptually grasp or doctrinally understand or something, but to experientially just get a taste of what I'm talking about when I say, anytime there's a thought arising, any sense of I is arising with the thought. Any sense of I you're feeling is arising with the thought that it's a subject to. And that thought can be some simple belief like, I'm uncomfortable. I need to do something. Something needs to be done here. So as soon as consciousness makes, let's say it this way, as soon as consciousness makes a thought, it makes with it a sense of someone who could react to the thought. And even that's not a problem. Where it becomes suffering is when the energetic of aliveness misinterprets itself as consciousness. And then it can, consciousness can react as a very, very basic layer over the energetic itself. And that can be taken to be everything you experience. All your suffering, all your problems, all your solutions, being asleep, being awake, all of it. It's just this interaction between consciousness and this sort of primal urge to survive. But it's energetic. That's energetic. It's not a thought. This is why when that self-structure drops, the energetics underneath it can be really powerful, like very surprising, very intense. Not for everybody. It's a little different for everybody. I mean, everybody will know that. Everyone will experience that to some degree, but sometimes it's immediate. That self-structure just not there. There's no boundaries, no barrier, no padding, nothing to attenuate experience anymore. So the energetics are full on. That's when that moment, you see what it's all been about the whole time. So it's really conscious contact with the energetics, in my experience, that allows that fundamental dissociation that says, I am, an I am in reference to something, always something, a thought. Has to be a thought. Could be, again, the subtle ones are like the world, form, and the not so subtle ones are my mom and my dad and my history and my problems and on and on. But it's always relational. If you really are able to really look closely, usually through meditation and unbound consciousness with enough experience, it'll become obvious that the sense of the I, the sense of the subject always arises with the sense of the thought that's somehow defining the I's experience, which is the object. They're sort of equally causal in that way. But again, there's a fire underneath that makes that feel like reaction. And once you believe you're reacting, once you believe you have to react, the physiology actually starts to react. The body. I would say the body actually probably reacts after habituation of a lot of thought-based reactions. And I will make a distinction here between reaction in the way I'm talking about it and response to the environment. Children have, like, little ones, right, have responses to the environment that can be what we might call intense or something, but they're not reactions so much. A baby crying because it's hungry or cold, it's not a reaction. It's just an immediate response. That baby is seamless with the environment. The reactions I'm talking about in the conventional sense grow directly out of the belief that things are not, well, I should say it this way. Things could be the way I want them to be rather than the way they are. That's what we react to. And when that is dispelled, that belief in all of its forms, things get so calm. They get so much more smooth. There's so much less to think about. The reason there's less to think about is because there's less tendency to dissociate. So then it's much more about feeling. And then it becomes about energetics.